Here for another segment is Caddo Commissioner Stephen Jackson. You waving frantically before we went to break down there.
I saw you on Channel 3 the other night. That was a good segment they did on politics and some things in the election with regard to the governor's race, etc. But you mentioned something they didn't stop on the amendments. You said you have issue with one of the amendments that gives New Orleans certain rights that other cities won't
A
get.
tax exemption, to be precise.
What amendment is that, and what do we need to worry about with it?
Yeah, amendment number 4. And, my thing is we have to look at the state of Louisiana. I believe Bruce Wilson and Rashida Dawson with United Way was here, and they've commissioned the Alice report over the last 3 or 4 years. And one of the things that they noticed that we have a affordable housing crisis. And United Way does that study statewide, and it's an affordable housing crisis statewide. And so,
let me clarify just it's Amendment 4 that would give tax exemptions in New Orleans to builders, to contractors, etc., who build affordable public housing.
Right.
Okay.
And so I wouldn't say a public, because affordable housing doesn't always have to be public.
Sorry.
But to do affordable housing. And that's not something that's awarded as I read it, and I may be wrong, but my interpretation is if it's not awarded statewide, why give a tool when this is a statewide crisis to just one particular
in other words, why does New Orleans get a break, or New Orleans contractors, builders, etc., get a break, and nobody up north does?
I would love for Caddo Parish to have that exemption as well, because we do have.
Is this an example of just south of I-10? They've got more political clout, so they could get it on the docket, and we can't.
Right. I mean, let it just be voted on by New Orleans, and let it be a local referendum. Don't make it statewide. But I don't feel comfortable voting on something.
And I think you feel a little uncomfortable, as do I, looking at that. Well, why should I pay up here for New Orleans stuff?
Well, I think it's more of a they're going to get a local property tax exemption. But I don't know why does it have to go out to a statewide referendum. Maybe it's something in the Constitution. But I just think it's a tool that all of the state of Louisiana may need in order to benefit and move the needle forward with regard to what we see in the Alice report.
But if it's not necessarily Louisiana dollars that would go to that, I mean, why?
That's my question.
Why not just help out New Orleans and then worry about us later? Why does that make that down there a bad idea?
I'm not saying it's a bad idea. I'm just saying
it's just not a fair idea.
Right, it's not fair. There's no equity right now. If it's an issue in Shreveport, if it's an issue in Monroe, if it's an issue in Baton Rouge, if it's an issue in Point Capoo, I hope I said that right.
Close enough.
But
what's that quarterback's name?
Tagliabue.
Yeah. Go ahead.
I mean, if it's an issue, if affordable housing is an issue statewide, we should be looking at this particular exemption to be a statewide type deal.
Let's talk political stuff from the governor's race.
Okay.
Obviously, you're a Democrat. You're John Bel Edwards supporter. Are you convinced he might win this outright at this point, or no?
I tell people, I look at the polls, and we all know after 2016, you look at them with a grain of salt. I think John Bel Edwards has a base. I think he's more inclined to win if he gets his base out. There's no guarantee. I mean, if you look outside this morning, it looks a little, sky's a little gray. And so you have to get his base out. He has his base. He knows who his base is. They're not changing regardless of how much money the Republican Governors Association spend. His base is not going anywhere. He has to get them out and get them to the polls to avoid a runoff.
And does it matter which Republican to you if he's in a runoff? Which would you prefer?
I'm not going to reveal that one, but I'll be with them regardless of which Republican. And he, I've seen the debates. He is obviously the most substantive. He has the most substance in the debate, and you can tell he's somewhat of a policy wonk. But I think he's getting his message out. I just saw in East Baton Rouge where he had bipartisan support endorsements down there.
Let me try this one. We were surprised. I'm sure you were a little surprised too when both Senator John Kennedy and or Attorney General Jeff Landry did not get into the race.
Yeah.
Do you think? Let me phrase it this way. Do you think that Representative Abraham and Mr. Risponi are necessarily the best that the Republican Party had to offer.
I'm glad you said that. I didn't, but I think I'd love to know what did the leading candidates.
Why did they
Landry and Kennedy,
balk at getting in?
Yeah, I'd love to know what did they look in and see that nobody else saw that kept them out of the race, particularly
And
Kennedy.
was what kept them out of the race what they perceived to be John Bell's, dare I say, not unbeatability, but the odds would be against them.
Right. I think if you had to go look at the Republican bench in the state of Louisiana, I don't think Eddie Rispone nor Ralph Abraham was at the top.
Would have been your first pick.
I can't see that, and so there's something there that is encouraging or discourage those two to stay out. But
my thought is, who would not want to be a U.S. senator? Right. I get Kennedy. Are you kidding? That's the most awesome job in politics.
I mean,
in the
but Steve
world.
Scalise as well. I mean, at the urging of the president, he stayed out.
Early voting has been going on. It wraps up on Saturday.
Okay.
Robert made a good point the other day. He's like, why even have election day anymore? We can all go early vote. Just go vote when you want.
I'm being kind of serious. Why not have election week or election month?
And forget this election
Why
day
have
mess.
election? Yeah, I mean, let's do it Monday to Sunday or whatever it happens to be. And I also
then have
don't-
your parties,
And
yeah.
I also don't like releasing the results of, to a great degree, some of the results from early voting. So you know how many people voted, and then they release the party breakdown. I just see that to me. That to me sort of soils the process.
Right. Well, you sound like a good liberal over there, Robert. A week of voting, but I think what
Look,
we
if
have
it were
to,
up to me, I would have election day.
Right.
But the point is, at some point, if you have election week, where you go Sunday to Monday,
wow, you
something
really,
like that.
Wow.
The point being that somebody's going to complain about that and want early voting for voting month.
Right. Well, I think what you have to remember is early voting is confined to one area of town, and you have a lot of people who would be significantly disenfranchised, particularly in Caddo, because the folks in North Caddo would have at least an hour drive just to come vote. Doing.
I mean, if I had voting, no, just have election week.
Right,
I
but
mean,
they would still have to make an hour drive at
No, you
some
could
point that week.
leave the polls open for a
Why
damn
don't we
week.
vote online,
No.
Stephen?
What I'm saying is, election day allows people to vote closest to their
Right.
home, and so
Right.
that's what I think the advantage of having election day is. People can exercise their right.
Sound like a
closest to
good
home.
conservative there, Stephen.
I'm.
What about online voting, Stephen?
I'm not going to be a fan of that. It's too much, especially going on with cyber. I mean, that's the fourth theater of war at this point with cyber hacking and cyber
I see
crime.
eye to eye on
So
that.
I'm just
Wow.
not going to ever come around on voting online. You know, we did that when I was SGA president at Grambling, and I balked. I won, but I balked at it because I just don't. I think that there's
Too
something
many
about
things
getting
to go
up.
wrong.
Yeah, there's something that you just got to get up and go do it. And I hope that we never go to a online voting.
Eye to eye. Next thing you know, I'll be tying a full Windsor.
Stephen Jackson, I forgot to bring you a Goo Goo cluster. I'll do it next
I see.
time.
I made the list.
Yeah, you did make the list.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Number one with a bullet, my friend.
Let's do it again. Let's do it again.
No, let's not.
Cattle Commissioner Stephen Jackson, great to see you as always.
All right. Thank
101